Eminem that's been hiding in plain sight for over 20 years. And honestly, when I first heard this, I had to replay it 3 times because it seemed too bizarre to be real. So Mariah just went on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, right? And Andy, being Andy, he doesn't hold back. He goes straight for the jugular and asks her about something that's been floating around the internet for months now. And what she revealed, I mean, it's not what you'd expect at all. Before I get into what she actually said, though, let me paint you a picture of just how deep this rabbit hole goes, because trust me, this isn't just your typical celebrity beef. We're talking about a feud that's lasted longer than some marriages, longer than entire careers, and it all might have started because of one of the most insulting casting suggestions in Hollywood history. Now, you might think you know this story. You might think you've heard it all before, but I promise you, there's a twist here that changes everything. So, back in June of this year, a music producer who'd actually worked with Mariah drops this absolute grenade on the internet. He claims, and I'm not making this up, that the entire reason Mariah Carey and Eminem have been at each other's throats for decades started because Eminem had the audacity to approach her about playing his mother in 8 Mile. Yes, you heard that right, his mother. And here's the kicker that makes this go from bad to absolutely savage. Mariah is only 4 years older than Eminem. 4 years. Can you imagine being one of the biggest pop stars on the planet? You're Mariah freaking Carey. You've got more #1s than most artists have songs, and someone comes up to you and basically says, hey, you'd be perfect to play someone old enough to be my mom, when you could literally have been in the same high school class. I would have lost my mind, honestly. And apparently that's exactly what happened. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is what had me rewind in that interview, because Andy Cohen doesn't just ask her if it's true. He specifically says this producer claims she was insulted by the request. So naturally, everyone's expecting Mariah to either deny it completely or go off on a rant about how disrespectful that was, right? But that's not what happens at all. Mariah looks at Andy, and she's got that expression on her face. You know the one. That mix of amusement and oh honey energy that only Mariah can pull off. And she says, from what I heard, there is truth to that. From what she heard. Like she's talking about some random gossip and not a decades-long feud that's produced diss tracks, interviews, and enough drama to fill a Netflix series. But then she adds this little caveat that makes everything even more confusing. She says, but I don't think that he actually, well, who knows who approached. And that right there, that hesitation, that's where things get murky, because now we're left wondering, okay, so maybe it wasn't Eminem himself who approached her, maybe it was his people, maybe it was the producers of 8 Mile, but does that even matter? Because here's the thing about Hollywood and the entertainment industry that most people don't get. When you're at that level, when you're Eminem or Mariah Carey, you don't usually do your own dirty work. You've got managers, agents, publicists, a whole team of people whose job it is to handle these conversations. So whether Eminem personally called Mariah or whether his team reached out, the message is the same. And that message is basically, we think you're old enough to play this guy's mom. And for someone like Mariah, who's always been so conscious of her image, who's built an entire brand around being eternally youthful and glamorous, that's not just insulting, that's a declaration of war. But wait, because this is where Mariah's response gets absolutely legendary and shows you exactly why she's been at the top of this game for so long. Andy then asks her directly, did that ignite the beef? And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, here we go. She's about to confirm that this is what started everything. We're finally going to get the origin story of one of entertainment's most famous feuds. But Mariah, in the most Mariah way possible, just shrugs and says, I really don't care. She literally says she doesn't care. After all these years, after all the songs, after all the drama, she's sitting there acting like this whole thing is beneath her notice. And honestly, I respect that energy so much because she's basically saying, without saying it, that Eminem and this entire feud don't even register on her radar anymore. She's moved on, she's living her best life, and whether or not this casting situation is what started their beef doesn't even matter to her. But here's what really got me thinking, and this is where my opinion comes in because I've been following this saga for years now. I think Mariah is playing this absolutely perfectly. Think about it. Eminem has mentioned her in his lyrics, he's talked about her in interviews, he's kept this thing alive for 2 decades. And what does Mariah do? She shows up on a talk show, confirms that, yeah, maybe there's some truth to this wild story, and then immediately dismisses the whole thing like it's yesterday's news. That's power right there. That's knowing how to control a narrative without even trying. She's not giving him the satisfaction of seeing her upset. She's not feeding into the drama. She's just existing above it all like the icon she is. Now, let's talk about what this means for the actual story of their feud. Because if this is true, if the 8 Mile casting situation is really what kicked everything off, that changes how we look at everything that came after. All those diss tracks, all those cryptic interviews, all those moments where they've shaded each other over the years, it all traces back to what might have been the most tone-deaf casting suggestion in cinema history. And you know what makes this even crazier? 8 Mile was a huge success. It won an Oscar. It basically cemented Eminem's status as more than just a rapper. He became a legitimate actor and cultural icon. But imagine if Mariah had said yes. Imagine if she'd swallowed her pride and taken that role. Would we even have this feud? Would Eminem have still written those songs about her? Would their relationship have been completely different? But she didn't say yes. And honestly, good for her, because why should she have? The optics of that casting choice are terrible when you really think about it. Eminem was born in 1972. Mariah was born in 1969. They're practically the same generation. And yet someone thought it would be a good idea to have her play his mother in a movie. That's not just a stretch. That's offensive. It's basically saying that Mariah looks significantly older than she actually is, or that she gives off maternal energy, which are neither of the things you want to hear when you're a megastar who's built your career partly on being a sex symbol and a vocal powerhouse. So yeah, if I were in her shoes, I probably would have been insulted too. And here's another layer to this whole thing that I find fascinating. Mariah mentions in the interview that whatever he said, I'm fine. Not really, but that's a rap lyric. That little comment right there tells you everything you need to know about how she views this situation. She's acknowledging that Eminem has said things about her in his music, but she's also dismissing it as just rap lyrics, just words, just entertainment. She's not taking it personally anymore, or at least that's what she wants us to believe. But that little, not really, she throws in there, that's the crack in the armor. That's the admission that, yeah, maybe some of it did sting. Maybe some of those lyrics did hurt. But she's chosen to rise above it. What I love about this whole interview moment is how it perfectly captures the different approaches these two artists have to conflict. Eminem's style has always been to go hard, to be explicit, to call people out by name and really dig into them with his lyrics. That's his brand. That's what his fans expect from him, and he's made an incredible career out of that confrontational approach. Mariah, on the other hand, is all about the subtle shade, the knowing look, the I don't know her energy that's become one of her most famous memes. She doesn't need to write diss tracks or go off in interviews. She just has to show up, look fabulous, and act like you're not even worth her time. And honestly, from a psychological standpoint, that might be even more devastating than anything Eminem could rap about her. So where does this leave us with the whole 8 Mile theory? Well, Mariah's confirmed there's some truth to it, but she's also been vague enough that we can't say for certain that this is the reason their feud started. Maybe it was a contributing factor. Maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back, or maybe there were other things going on behind the scenes that we'll never know about. The entertainment industry is full of secrets, full of moments and conversations that happen away from cameras and microphones. And sometimes the real story is way more complicated than what we see in headlines and interviews. But what we do know for sure is that the image of someone approaching Mariah Carey about playing Eminem's mother in a movie, that's just inherently hilarious and insulting in equal measure. And you know what? I think that's why this story has gotten so much traction now, all these years later. It's the kind of detail that makes the whole feud make sense in a weird way. It's not about music, it's not about competition, it's not about any of the usual reasons celebrities beef with each other. It's about respect, or the lack thereof. It's about someone making a suggestion that was so tone-deaf, so oblivious to how it would be received, that it created bad blood that's lasted for over 20 years. It's almost poetic in a way, the idea that one casting call could have such massive repercussions. And the fact that Mariah is willing to talk about it now, even in this casual, dismissive way, suggests that maybe enough time has passed that she can look back on it with some distance. The other thing that strikes me about this whole situation is what it says about aging in Hollywood, especially for women. The fact that someone thought Mariah could play Eminem's mother when she's only 4 years older than him speaks to this larger issue of how the entertainment industry ages women faster than men. Male artists and actors can be considered young and vital well into their 40s and 50s, but women are often pushed into maternal or older roles way earlier. And for someone like Mariah, who's always fought against those stereotypes, who's always maintained this image of timeless beauty and relevance, that casting suggestion must have felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just about Eminem.